Good morning, everybody. According to the sleep science, we all dream every night. When we wake up, sometimes we don't remember, or sometimes something lingers, a feeling, an image, a memory, even a sense of something. And even then, we often push it away. Or when we do remember something, instead of being with it, we go more into a place of like, what is that about? We jump straight into trying to figure it out. But what if that isn't what the dream's asking for? What if the dream's asking us to just stay, to just be with it, to touch into the experience in some way? What if what it really wants is to be in relationship with you? We're all taught that dreams are kind of like a puzzle that are meant to be figured out, meant to be solved. And while that's not always the worst thing in the world, it leaves out the experience of just learning to be with ourselves, learning to be with the dream in a non-dissociated, non-alienated way. It leaves out the part where we just sit and we listen, we experience, we feel into what's happening. It leaves out the part where the dream is actually still alive and awake inside our consciousness. It's a little bit like checking to see if a seedling is growing by pulling it out of the ground and looking at its root system. It gives you information from a scientific perspective, but in obvious ways it defeats the purpose. Here's the deeper thing. It doesn't just come from curiosity, this rush to analyze. It comes from the dissociation of this culture. We're taught to be alienated. We're taught that the best thing we can do is look at things from a kind of dissociated intellectual place. What does it mean? How do we interpret it? How do we figure it out? How do we analyze it? We're taught to avoid the unknown. We're taught to avoid the unconscious. We're taught to avoid the possibility that there's actually consciousness that lives not just in our dreams, but in ourselves and in the world around us. It's kind of a fear-based way of being, of thinking. It's based on avoiding the discomfort of not always being in control of things, not always being on top of things. Real dream work is different. The kind of dream work that Sue and I do, what we're talking about here in these videos, what we've done for the past 20 years now, is develop a practice that's really about a way to live. It's not just about figuring out a dream. It's actually about learning to be in ourselves and trust the consciousness that comes from that place. So let me give you an example. The dream is about this place where I'm coming out of this train station. I'm with this younger woman, and we step out into the street, I guess. My memory kind of like, I think it's more an emotional experience, so it's not about the literal what I step into, but there's this feeling of chaos that breaks out, this feeling of having to navigate, maybe even explosions, uncertainty. It's kind of a scary place, stepping into a different new worlds. And for me, even now, after all these years of practice, when I wake up, my first impulse is still like, what do I do with this? What does it mean? What's happening? I still have that impulse in me. But what I did instead is I took a breath, and one of the first things I do is I kind of do this unconsciously at this point, but I want you to think about it as I realize the dream speaks in a different language than I know. So coming out of a train station, coming out of that doorway, it's not just a doorway. You're not just coming out of a literal doorway into a literal street. It's about the transition. It's about the metaphor of like, what does it mean to move from one space to another space? So that's what I did. I just like felt into it. I was like, okay, what's it like to be in this transition space? What is it even like to be the transition? And this weird thing often happens when we do that, when we can stay in relationship to the dream. Some part of our brain shuts off and consciousness comes to us either from a different part of our brain, or maybe on a spiritual level it comes through us from the divine or from deeper consciousness. And what happened for me is suddenly I felt that chaos just as like my own fear of this transition that I'm going through in my life. It's a big thing. For the last 10 years, I've been really quiet in relationship to the world. I've chosen to like limit the work that I do with small groups of people, one-on-one work, and suddenly I'm out here on YouTube. Sue and I are talking about doing a whole new program to build community, to build a space where we can do this kind of work together in a much broader way. And there's a part of me that's like, what am I doing? Whose idea was this? But that's the practice. All of that, in a way, comes up for me in that moment when I make space from it. And then that becomes my practice. I get a kind of clarity and an energy that I would have never gotten from that dream if I had stayed with the original question. This is about every dream that we have. Can we take a moment with this energy? So I chose that moment because it's the moment where the chaos breaks out. It's the transition moment. Often there's an edge in a dream. Often there's a place where there's energy or a vacuum of energy, something that draws you. And the idea is, can I be with that moment and see what happens? Now, if that's a scary moment, as always, or it's overwhelming in some other way, being with that moment could mean being with it with distance so that you're not like dragged into something that doesn't work for you. Remember always that this is your choice. So if you're with me and you want to try this, here's a practice you could try tomorrow morning. When you wake up, remember the science if that's helpful. The question isn't, did I have a dream? The question is, can I remember the dream? Like it's somewhere there in my consciousness. Can I access that? Can I take a breath and be like, okay, before I jump into my day, my to-do list, my thinking about what I need to do for the world, for everybody else, or just to get through the day, and I take a breath and access that other part. And even if I can't, like you can do this exercise with like, well, what's the feeling from the night before? Is there an image? What is this place that I'm waking up from? Can I honor whatever the last, whether it's 6, 8, 10 hours, lucky you if it's 10 hours, but can I honor that by just being with it and taking a breath? And you can kind of adapt this exercise. I'm going to focus it on being with a dream, but if you don't have a dream, then you can still do this almost like a morning meditation. So for me, what I do is I close my eyes, and if I have a memory, the first thing I do is like, how do I be with this memory? How do I be with this dream? And as always, I notice the ideas, the judgments, the like, oh, that was a weird dream, or what is this? And I don't try to overcome that impulse. I just try to put it off to the side. It's like, okay, that's all there. Some of it may even be true. I try not to argue with it. Maybe I even already have some things figured out. I've done this work for 20 years, so I have all sorts of ideas. But I set all those ideas off to the side most of the time. And I just try to find a moment. I find that moment. I'm with that moment on that, with that idea of like, oh, this is a different language. It's not just about the doorway from the train station to the street. It's not about a literal doorway or a street. It's if you're in a car, it's not, or there's a car crash, it's not necessarily about a literal car crash. It could be about how we move through the world. The metaphor for a car, or a train, a plane could be like how you're navigating your own life. And then just take a moment with a breath and just see what comes up for you. Maybe ask the question like, how is this for me to be in this place? Again, I often think of dreams energetically and geographically. Like instead of thinking about it from a distance, how do I either put myself in that place, or even, like I said, if it's something that's overwhelming and you need to distance yourself, how do I take a breath and look at that place? How do I feel into, okay, what's the energy? What's happening? What is that for me? And then I wait for a moment and I see what comes up and I try to trust what comes up. And then I notice that and I stay with that. Like I find a moment and I try to stay with it kind of through 3 series of questions. Most of the time the question is just, how is that? And then how is it when something comes up for you? Like, how is it to be with that place? And see if something keeps flowing for you. And trust yourself. You know, part of the whole practice isn't just about the dream. It's about learning to trust your own way of being, not just with the dream, but with yourself. It's a practice in empowerment in that way. It's a practice in trusting your own discernment. This is my dream. What is it like for me to be with it in a way that works for me? So just to add to the chaos, my camera overheated, so there might be a bit of a transition here. Anyway, in terms of what I was saying, I think where I was at was mostly through with the practice. And what I was about to say is there's not really a wrong response. The practice is just notice what comes up in you and see if you can stay with that and trust yourself. Trying to stay with the moment, not with the idea of figuring it out. You're not trying to get anywhere. You're just trying to stay in relationship with what I think of as consciousness, the consciousness that comes to us in our dreams. And for some of you, that you can also like work with it as the divine. Like if that works for you on a spiritual level, let it be part of your prayer practice. Let it be part of your meditation practice. Let it be part of your personal, emotional, spiritual growth practice. I mean, this is where it all begins. Being able to be with consciousness and letting that move through our bodies, into our bodies, and learning to stay with that in a very embodied way. Again, you don't need to be good at this. You don't need to figure things out. It's not really what your dreams want. They want you to be with them. They want you to actually be in a kind of relationship with them, with consciousness. If you do that, this odd thing happens where intuition, insight, consciousness opens up without having to try so hard, without having to look at all the dream dictionaries or having huge systems. I mean, we all need a bit of a framework. We need something to do with the erroneous, judgmental ideas that come up. We need a way to make sure we do it in a way that, with super intense dreams that are overwhelming, not to find support with them, to find space, but to still be able to work with them. Another thing is, like, we need to know we're not alone. Like, we need to know there are other people. Part of why I'm doing this channel is we all need to know that there's a whole community of people out there who are tired of the old way of being with things, that want to see themselves, want to see the world change in a way that is more in line with deeper consciousness, not always hooked on the outer world and outer world goals and all the drama that tends to thrive in that place where people aren't rooted in themselves. What we really need is people to walk this journey with and explore with. Sue and I have been working on some ideas on our part to do that better, to actually kind of connect in a bigger way with people in the world, to build it more on the community level. But for now, like, the main thing you need to do is just keep listening to your dreams. Remember, your dream doesn't need to be figured out. It just needs to be with you. You just need to be in relationship there and let what comes to you come to you. If this way of listening makes sense to you, then stay close, like and subscribe. If you know someone who might be interested in this sort of thing, you'd be doing us a great favor by sharing the video. And maybe you'd open something up in your own life with somebody about how to be with another person with your dreams. Let's keep building something here together. Let's build something in our lives. Let's build something with each other. All of that. As always, thanks for being here with me. I appreciate it a lot. Keep dreaming.